Good morning, everyone. Haley, weren't you here last night?
I thought it would be better to start it during the day because 5 o'clock is when everybody is doing stuff in my house.
Sure. Just know that we're going to cover a lot of the same stuff today that we did last night.
That's perfectly fine with me.
Okay. We'll wait a few more minutes because it's the first Monday, Wednesday session that people are coming to, so make sure that they can figure out what they're doing. Christina, didn't I see you last night too? Maybe not.
My bird flew. Come get you? Yeah. Do you have him? Mm-hmm.
Wait, there's a bird. Well, hello. That's a new species of co-teacher. We have not had a bird in class before.
He flew at me right as I was joining the meeting, so.
He wanted to be held. It happens.
Apparently he wanted to join.
Apparently he wanted to join.
Yeah.
Andrew, nice to see you. No need to use cameras if you don't want to, but I like to see you guys as smiling faces if you choose to do that, which is awesome. You guys will get to see my smiling face unless there's some reason that that can't happen. Every once in a while, the internet at my house is a little on the pokey side, so I could choose to turn off the camera for a little while, but most of the time I'm going to have to be like screen sharing and stuff like that anyway, so.
I'm going to have myself muted for just a little bit because I'm eating and I don't want you all to hear me munching. So.
Muting yourself in general is a good idea. And for those of you who are on computers with keyboards, if you just want to mute yourself and anytime you want to ask a question, holding down the space bar will temporarily unmute you. So that's a really good strategy, especially since we have busy lives around us. Ooh, I'm closing the window. It's chilly out this morning. What, the fall?
How is the weather out there? I'm actually in DC right now for a family funeral, so I'm actually not there. Is the smoke cleared yet?
Smoke's clear. It's, I don't know, I guess like 58 outside, but I'm on the island right now, so it depends. You know, in Mount Vernon, it's always a little bit warmer. Just a few more seconds, and then we'll start. Seems like we have a smaller group for the morning meetings than for evening. And even for the evening meetings, I think it was only like 20 people, and I've got, I want to say 50 in my two sections of Chem 121. And the two sections are all meeting together, so theoretically we could have 50 people in a Zoom meeting, but it'll never happen.
Are we going over the same stuff that we went over last night?
We are going over the same stuff that we went over last night, so I'm trying to have 2 different sessions a week so that people can either come to the morning ones or the evening ones. So if you already went through everything last night, or like mostly today is going to be sort of like, here's how the course is going to work, here's where you need to go to set up online homework and to get ready for the labs. Last night, our lab suite was down. I already checked it this morning. It is working, which is great. And they emailed me and were very apologetic about it. And I tried really hard to not be snarky and say, should have thought of that before you took everybody's money. But at least it's working today. So today's video, if you miss a recitation, for one, it's never required for you to be at these recitations. You don't have to come to one the entire quarter if you don't want to. You never have to be in person with me via Zoom, even once the entire quarter to get an A in the class. You can always watch the recitations. Even last night's is already up on Canvas. So I'll show you where that's at on our course Canvas page. But it is really nice to be able to interact with other people in the class, do practice problems together, and be able to ask questions live if something's not making sense. So I'm trying to provide recitations as sort of like a light version of what we would have if we were in class together doing lectures and solving problems and things like that. So it makes it a lot easier if you watch our little topical videos and sort of prepare before you come to class, because then we can spend our time intelligently focusing on the things that you're not very comfortable with. Wow, we've got some really interesting names. Is it Elner? Is that right? Elner? I've never heard of an Elner before. That's awesome.
Oh yeah, my name's Elmer. You
I like
pronounced
that.
it surprisingly.
I like that a lot.
Thank you.
With a name like Dinty, I am a person who like appreciates names that are sort of out of the ordinary a little bit. So, and is it Lucia or Lucia?
It's Lucia.
Lucia. Nice to meet you, Lucia.
Nice to meet you too.
I'm Dr. Musk. This is my, oh boy, now I have to do math in my head. So I graduated from University of Illinois with my PhD in December of 2006. I started my first assistant professor gig in fall of 2007. So fall 2007 to fall 2020. This is my 13th year as a full-time chemistry professor. I can't believe how fast the years have gone. I'm not sick of the job yet. As a matter of fact, I like it even better because now I actually know a few things about what I'm doing as opposed to when I started out when I was just terrified. So I love hanging out with students and I love teaching chemistry. And I particularly love teaching chemistry because it's a topic that tends to frighten a lot of people. And a lot of people, especially in high school, have a sort of a negative first impression of chemistry because they're learning it from somebody that doesn't really understand it well. That doesn't have to be the case. So hopefully you guys are going to have a good first, or at least a good this impression of chemistry when we learn some of it together in class. So I have a few things that I want to accomplish today. Most of those things have to do with just making sure that you understand the things that are expected of you in the course, and sort of going through the announcement that we talk about for like the stuff that you should be doing this week to get moving in the course. All right, so I'm going to screen share here. Oops. All right, Zoom, get out of the way. Zoom's top of the screen is sort of really distracting when you want to go to different browser tabs because it's in the way of everything. So what I'm going to do is go to our home for our course Canvas page. That's the wrong page. This is an important announcement. If for some reason you don't have the money to pay for Alex for a couple of weeks, which is our online homework suite, that will get you temporary access for a little while till your next paycheck. So that's very useful. The big things that I want to talk through are in our week 1 to-do list. So you have to sign up for homework at alex.com. I'll show you what that looks like in just a few minutes. So I'm keeping a list of the things that we have to talk about today so I don't forget anything. We have to talk about Alex. We have to talk about our online suite of labs, which is Beyond Labs with a Z, because everything has to have a Z instead of an S if it's meant to be hip and cool. We have to talk about the course syllabus, which is boring, but it's our contract, so we still have to talk about it. And we have to talk a little bit about how I've structured the course so that we can learn in the online environment. You can do pretty much everything through Canvas, or you can do a lot of your learning with me in recitations, and that is up to you. In the end, you're still going to be responsible for completing the reading quizzes and learning the same material to demonstrate that knowledge on exams. So let's talk through the course syllabus first. And we'll try and keep that talk short because the course syllabus is not the most engaging thing ever. I'm not going to download it again because I already have a copy on my computer because I'm the one that uploaded it in the first place. All right, so let's go through this pretty quickly. Obviously, you guys have already found the class Zoom links because you're here. The office hours Zoom link is different because that office hours, my office hours are for all my classes. So this is a link that everybody has. I'm still trying to figure out when during the week we're going to do our lab tutorials at. I'm thinking about just having one lab tutorial time a week and probably making it like late in the evening. So for example, if we had our Thursday recitation from 5 until 6:20, maybe at 6:30 we could spend an hour and do our lab tutorial for the week. You don't have to come to those. Every class meeting that we have for both sections is going to be recorded and posted on Canvas by date anyway. I'm also going to try and keep a list of the topics that we covered in those so that you can watch them if there's something particular you're struggling with. So if something's not working out in terms of a time for you, then you can always watch that recitation that you missed. So importantly, right here is my real life cell phone number, not a cell phone that's a burner phone. I want you guys to be able to contact me if you're having issues in the course or if something isn't making sense. So should that number be the first thing that you text if you're having trouble getting an answer right on a question? Maybe not. There are other resources that you can use for help, especially with our online homework suite. I'll show you those. But if you need me for something and it can't wait, then text is a great way to get a hold of me. Let's keep it to like after 8 a.m. and before 10 p.m. And there are some times when I'm out in the wilderness. One of the things about me is that I really enjoy fishing and I like to hunt during the hunting season, and I like mushroom foraging also. That's one of my hobbies. So sometimes I am out of cell phone range, but if I'm around, then I'll get back to you quickly. And certainly I can get back to you in under a day via email or via cell phone. But cell's normally the quickest turnaround. So in terms of office hours, I've tried to make office hours at slightly different times of the day so that hopefully you can come to one or more of them. So Mondays and Wednesdays from 1 to 2, and Tuesday, Thursdays, they're normally going to start at 3, so 3 to 4:30. And I can always pare those back if people aren't showing up for the first half hour. If none of those times make sense for you, make an appointment. I'm more than happy to have a time where we can log into my office hours Zoom together and chat, but I don't know if you need help unless you tell me, all right? It's a lot harder for me to read faces in the online environment when not everybody even has their webcam on, and sometimes I'm screen sharing like this and I can't see everybody anyway. So I'm only gonna know that you need help in this environment if you ask. So you have to be proactive, but I am more than happy to help you as much as possible. I know that a lot of you have already signed up for your online homework through Alex. Here is the code that will get you enrolled in my course. Don't worry about purchasing an access code. That's not the same thing as this. That's if you wanted to like prepay for Alex at the college bookstore. They would sell you an access code that you could use to unlock Alex. You can just pay for access to Alex directly through alex.com, and it's actually cheaper to do it that way. This is a joke. We don't actually have in-person labs this quarter, so you don't have to buy safety goggles. Haha. So the course and program outcomes, these are the big picture takeaways that I hope that you have by the end of this course. They're really important because that's kind of how the course is structured to get you to a place where these things are all familiar and comfortable for you at the end of the quarter. Most of the important correspondence from me is going to come through Canvas announcements. So if there are deadline changes or other kinds of things, like basically anything I need to tell you is probably going to come out through a Canvas announcement. All right. I would highly recommend that if you have a cell phone that's capable of it, download the app for Canvas through iPhone or Android or whatever, and for any different software or for any different operating system that's available for a phone, Canvas has an app for that operating system. So the apps are pretty good. And the big thing is you can set up so that whenever there's an announcement, you get notified of that. But be checking Canvas regularly in any case to make sure that you don't miss something. My grading policies are pretty normal. I forgot to talk about this. In terms of support services, my office hours are definitely support, all right? So use me, and I'm happy to help you. There is also online tutoring. If you just look at skagit.edu and search online tutoring or just search for tutoring, then you can schedule time with chemistry tutors one-on-one online. So they only get paid for the hours that they're working, and they actually need more students to take advantage of them. So do take advantage of them because you're helping them get paid. And to some extent, like, you've already paid for that by enrolling in this course. So why wouldn't you take advantage of that, right? My grading policies are pretty standard, other than the fact that I hate giving A minuses. So I talked more last night about the sort of historical reasons why I hate the grade A minus. But in general, unless you're like right on that 90% cutoff within 0.5%, if you're above 90%, you're probably getting an A for the course, because I hate A minuses. All right. If we look, the grade breakdown is pretty simple. Each of the 3 exams for the course counts for roughly 20% of the course grade, a little less than 20%. The labs for the course count for 20%, so about the same amount as one exam. The homework that we're going to do on our homework suite, Alex, accounts for 20%, which is roughly the same as one exam. All right. So I regard the homework from Alex and the reading quizzes, those are both things that you can keep on redoing until you get 100%. There's no reason that with the right amount of effort, you shouldn't get 100% for both of those parts of your grade. And generally speaking, students do very, very well on the labs as well. And you can ask questions about those before you turn them in. You should get a very high score on those points as well. All right. So I regard that 45% of the grade as effort-based. And then after that, 55% is you have to demonstrate that you've actually like taken home the knowledge and skills and abilities that you're supposed to on the exams. In general, there are videos that are posted for each of the chapters and by parts of the chapter that will help you learn the main topics for those chapters. And then after you watch those videos, there are short little reading quizzes that you can take to demonstrate your knowledge. You can keep on retaking those until you get 100% on them. But they can be a little bit tricky because I couldn't make them too short so people can't just like brute force guess their way to 100%. All right. If you're having trouble with a reading quiz and you haven't gotten 100% on it yet, maybe you want to ask about that during a recitation, and we can at least do some similar kinds of problems or talk through the materials so that you're more comfortable and can get those points. So let's talk through the online homework system in just a second. So homework is going to be completed through the website aleks.com. It's a mastery-based homework system, and we'll spend more time talking about that when we actually log on to Alex. Beyond Labs is the lab suite where most of our labs are going to take place. We already purchased access for you with your lab funds for the quarter. The whole lab safety, this is just sort of, I left it in the syllabus for fun because it's hilarious. Do your lab activities in your pajamas, whatever. But in terms of lab safety, when we're in person, there are lots of precautions that we have to take. So that's normally a part of the syllabus, and it's just weird to not have that in there now. For each lab, there is a set of worksheets that you have to turn in. They're going to be due a week from when the lab is actually assigned and gone over in class. So our first lab that we're going to go over in this week is I'll probably do that tomorrow night at 6:30 p.m. There are already lab tutorials that are available for you on the course Canvas page because I've used these labs for a quarter already. So when my last set of students went through those labs, we had lab tutorial times where we went through the labs together. So you can already watch those and figure out how to do the labs. You may just have a little trouble finding them at first, but I can help you with that when we start to talk about beyond labs, all right? In terms of academic misconduct, it is kind of weird, especially for us to test online. So I'm still working through the best way to like figure out whether I just want to make all resources other than like asking a chemistry professor to do your exam for you or something. I'm trying to figure out whether I even want to try and impose restrictions on what are allowed and not allowed resources. But when I actually make instructions for an exam, I ask that you read them very carefully and that you do abide by them. So if I ask you not to use the internet, or if I ask you not to use the textbook or whatever I asked, please abide by that. I know it's hard in the virtual environment and there's a lot of grade pressure, but I want us all to be on the same footing. And believe it or not, it's actually a lot better if I write an exam that's closed book than if I write one that's open book. Because if I write an open book exam, then I can't ask any of the easy questions that you should be able to get without looking at your book. All right. So an open book exam normally is a much, much more difficult exam. And I can only give closed books exams if people are actually going to pay attention to that. So think about that and make sure that when I write instructions for an exam that you follow those, all right? Some of you are part of the iBest sections for our course this quarter. That means that you're also signed up for a 2-credit support class that will help you be successful in here. Jennifer, who is our support instructor, I don't know if she's around this morning. She was around last night, but she is going to help you with a course Canvas page and separate instruction that is meant to support your learning in this course. So I assume that you'll learn more about that if you haven't already when you guys have your first meeting for the support course. Nobody is going to be disruptive or disrespectful. So I don't even worry about that, but I have to have that statement in there so that students can't be jerks and say, well, it wasn't in the syllabus. If you need disability access services, there is a link in my syllabus that will help you get to the information that you need. So take advantage of those services if you need them. And then finally, this is one of my favorite blurbs from my years and years of learning chemistry. An ancient organic chemist named Peter Beek, still alive. He is an emeritus professor now at University of Illinois. He was still an active professor when I was a grad student there. I ended up meeting with him because I was having trouble getting a chemical reaction to work. And he pointed me to a journal on his wall and said, your answer's in there. And then after that, we were sitting and having coffee and talking about just shooting the breeze about chemistry. And he made the statement that he actually never thought he really learned chemistry. He just got used to it, which I thought was hilarious because even then he was a member of the National Academy of Science, which means that he was voted as one of the most important chemists in the Americas. That's really important. All right. So all-star chemist, and he thought that he never really learned chemistry. He just got used to it. But I think that can serve as a really nice model for how we can approach learning chemistry, especially if we're really uncomfortable with it at the beginning. So you have to commit to consistently exposing yourself to this material that is uncomfortable to you, right? When you're learning a new language, immersion therapy, which means like you parachute into that country where you don't speak the language and you try and figure it out, that is a very efficient way to build from zero to a place where you're actually comfortable with some of these key concepts. And at the beginning, it's going to be hard because you don't have much of a knowledge base, but you'll build that knowledge base if you spend the time. All right. And if something is not comfortable to you, don't allow it to stay uncomfortable. Instead, ask. All right. I'm willing to help you, but I can't figure out that you're in trouble unless you tell me you're in trouble. And another big picture thing that I want you to focus on, and I'll talk about this a lot as we go through our exams, don't focus so much on specific problems or problem types. So chemistry is not a science of problems, it's a science of principles. So if we focus on principles, the main principles that allow us to interpret the chemical world, those don't change regardless of what new way that I ask you about a particular problem. So if you spend your time thinking and focusing on the principles, and how do you do that when you're doing homework problems? When you look at a homework problem, think about what things you need to know to be able to solve that problem. What principles are the principles that you have to understand in order to get from the information you're given to what you need to answer at the end, all right? Those principles never change. They're going to be the same question after question after question. So focusing on those principles are a way to really make sure that you're ready for exams where I'm going to ask you things maybe in a little different way that you've ever been asked before. Don't be anonymous. Come to recitations on Zoom. It's not required, but it will definitely help you because you can be interactive and ask if you're not understanding something. Come to office hours, text me. So don't be anonymous, all right? I know that our community has suffered a little bit as a result of lockdowns and moving everything online, but it doesn't have to be nothing. So we can still make the conscious decision to embrace community as much as possible in the way that we learn this chemistry. We can help each other as long as we're willing to put in time together through these recitations. So let's do that, all right? Take advantage of all the opportunities you have to interact with others who can teach you. So I'm going to move on to our course Canvas page.
Quick question. Are tests dated and timed, or is it just like, hey, there's a test due by the end of the week? Like,
they are dated and timed, but they're the window is a long window, all right? So what will happen is you'll have, let's say we have an exam on a given class day. That day will be the day that you have to take the exam, but the window will open probably from 9 a.m. until 11 p.m. And anytime in that window, you'll have a 2-hour block once you start the exam to finish it. Does that make sense?
yeah, thank you.
Yep. So there's a lot of flexibility for when you take your exam in terms of time, but in terms of day, it'll be an assigned day where everybody takes the test. That way I can limit the amount of like knowledge transfer. You know, if you guys know each other outside of class, I don't want people taking the exam and then spreading around like, you know, the tricky question that was on there to all the other people. Okay, so let's talk through how the modules on Canvas work. And to do that, I'm going to view the course like you guys would, because I see a little bit more than you do. All right. So in student view, you can see on the course homepage, there are little modules. The course documents, read through those. This is the stuff and the week 1 to-do list and the introductions part. These are the things that you have to do to get rolling in the course. Once you have signed up for Alex, our online homework system, once you have downloaded Beyond Labs and you can access labs for the course, then it's time to start learning. So we start our learning in chapter 1. And in chapter 1, I have a bunch of short topical videos that I've recorded. And you'll watch those videos and take notes and learn. And after that, you'll take a little reading quiz for 1 or 2 of those videos and demonstrate that you actually understood the material that you were supposed to by reading those sections and watching the videos. So the book is a pretty good book, which is why we use it. It's an old edition of the textbook, which means it's really cheap to buy online. So look around a little bit. You should be able to get this book used for certainly under 40 bucks now. I've seen it as cheap as 20 or less. So just look a little bit before you buy. And it's still a good book. There's no reason for us to upgrade to the newest version if we don't have to. And if you look, I also have the entire set of PowerPoint slides that I'm using to go through these sections so that you can use those as sort of a study guide to review. If you want, you can even print all these PowerPoint slides and take notes on them as you're going through the videos. I think that would be a really tremendous way to keep all that information handy. So just, you know, you don't have to do things the way I say, but that would be one way to keep a good note set by looking at these videos, is by printing the PowerPoints and then taking notes on them as you're watching. I think that'd be really smooth. Any questions about that? So one thing that I will say is that I don't have due dates for too many chapters worth of material yet. I'm still working on sort of pacing the course on Canvas for the new quarter, but I do have some due dates already for the first couple of reading quizzes, and the first one is due by tomorrow. All right, so it shouldn't take you guys that long to watch this first video, look at the first few sections, and then do the first reading quiz, but you got to get started pretty soon. All right, so we've got to get rolling here, and that first due date and the second due date, that's a day after, those are ways to help you sort of get rolling. All right, get rolling for the course. So now let's look at our online homework suite, Alex. I'm going to log into Alex. Remember, the course code that I've given you a couple of places on the Canvas page will get you enrolled in the course. It looks like 34 of you guys have already enrolled, which is awesome. So there should be another 14 people or so. Don't worry about this. So one thing that I will say is I'm going to have to stop screen sharing when I log into our course page because for some reason they thought it was a good idea for the landing screen for our course to have student grades on it. That's a really dumb idea because how many of you guys know what FERPA means, or at least like what it is? Anybody know what FERPA is? F-E-R-P-A, FERPA?
That's a negative.
It's a negative. So FERPA is the Family Educational Right to Privacy Act, which means that I can't share your grades with anybody else. So even me landing on that screen, now right now, there have been no due dates yet, so there are no grades assigned, no big deal. But after a while, when people have a percentage for their grade on that landing screen, even landing on that and letting you guys see it for a second is a technical FERPA violation. So I'm going to try and keep your grades as anonymous as possible.
When was that passed?
What's that?
When was that passed, and is that nationwide?
It is nationwide, and it's, I don't know, 15 years. When I was in high school, they still posted exam grades with people's last names, like on the doors of, yeah, so they can't do that anymore. That there were a couple of cases that made that go away. So I'm going to go back.
That's why I asked, because when I was in high school, which was like 6 to 8 years ago, like they still did that. So
Yeah. We're going to try this one more time. I have to reset the student view so that you can see what you'll actually see the first time you log into Alex. So the first time that you log into Alex after you use my course code, here's what you'll see. The first thing it's going to do is going to teach you what Alex is and how to use it. So Alex is our way of doing homework for the CHEM121 course, but it is a mastery-based learning system. So that means that it figures out what things you know and gets you past those really quickly and spends a lot more time helping you master the kinds of things that you're not very comfortable with. That also means that it can be kind of frustrating because it very quickly gets you past the things that you're already good at and makes you spend a lot of time struggling with the things that you're not very good at. All right, that can be frustrating, but it's also the most important way that you can get better at chemistry, is to do the things that you're not already good at. So I'm not going to spend time on this tutorial, but you guys will, because you need to know how to answer questions and enter answers correctly in Alex. So it gives you a little tutorial to figure out how Alex wants answers entered. And generally, whenever you complete a task in Alex, it congratulates you, which is kind of nice. It's good to be congratulated when you do something good. So this initial knowledge check is not the first assignment, all right? Your first assignment is not the Chapter 1 assignment. It is a prerequisite review. So the first assignment is a review of the math and science-y kinds of topics that you'll need to be successful in the course. All right. And that assignment is due, I'll show you where the due dates are on our course Canvas page in a minute. So this knowledge check is a pretest. Because ALEX is a mastery-based homework system, it gives you a pretest to see what things you already know, what things you've already mastered. Now, I've already had a couple of emails from students that are like, I don't understand most of these questions in the knowledge check. That's because it's a pretest. You're not supposed to know everything. If you know how to balance chemical equations already, maybe you could enter the coefficients here. But if you don't know, then say, I don't know. All right, that's totally fine. That's what this course is about, is learning these things. But hopefully you've already had some of the math that you need to be successful in the course. And a lot of these questions in the knowledge check are just sort of basic math questions also. So I'm going to skip this knowledge check, but you're going to take the knowledge check and it's going to figure out with this knowledge check what things you already know. So let's say that you completed this knowledge check and you knew just a little bit of introductory college chemistry. So basically your math prerequisites you're pretty good at, but you don't know very much chemistry. All right, so the results of this pretest, it looks like I already know a fair amount of the math and physics that I need to know to have all of my, my homework done for the quarter, but I still need to learn a lot about measurement and about matter and chemical reactions. So this pie represents all of the learning that I have to do for the entire quarter in this class, in terms of homework anyway. Now, as I go through and answer more questions, as I complete topics in ALEX, this pie chart is going to fill in. So it's a way for you to keep track of how close you are to finishing up all of your homework for the entire quarter. All right. So this is called your knowledge pie. And as you go through, you'll keep track of your pie progress. You can also keep track of how long you have to get your next assignment done in this timeline. Now, I have a deadline in here for the prerequisite review, which is the first assignment. That deadline is going to change. It is not tomorrow night, all right? But imagine the first assignment, the prerequisite review, was due tomorrow night. You can see that right now we're on Wednesday, and I still have 17 topics left. So topics are sort of like homework questions, but each topic, in order to master it, you have to get 3 questions in a row correct on that topic. So I still have a pretty significant amount of homework to get done before that due date. So this timeline is your way of keeping track of how much you have left to do before the next objective, the next homework assignment is due. All right, don't wait until the last night that it's due in order to finish all of your topics, because maybe you're going to get stuck on one and then I won't be able to help you if we're, you know, if you're at 10 o'clock and the homework is due in an hour or 2. So try and start your ALEX homework early. That way you can ask questions. Also, if you're having trouble with a particular topic, let's go ahead and start so you can see what I'm talking about. So here is a topic where it's asking me to sketch a line of best fit for this data. Let's say you are having trouble getting the right answer for this topic. In order to make sure that I can get to it, this name is a specific name for that topic that allows me to find it very quickly. So make sure you write down the name of whatever topic, whatever question that you're not understanding. That way I can get to it in ALEX quickly and efficiently and do an example. So let's go ahead and sketch a line of best fit here. And I'm going to place a point there. That looks like a pretty good approximation for a line of best fit. So let's check our answer. Sweet. All right. So if you look up here, when I got a question right, the experience bar filled in just a little bit. I'm a big fan of role-playing games, so this is sort of like the semi-lame chemistry homework version of a role-playing game. It's not nearly as much fun as leveling up in Borderlands 3, which is the game that I've been playing a lot recently, but it is sort of an experience bar in the same respect. All right. So if I answer 2 more questions correct on this topic, Alex will know that I've mastered it. All right, so let's draw a line of best fit for this second data. And that's not great, but it's probably close enough. All right, notice that when I get a second question in a row right, I get double credit. Now, here's the bummer. If I get a question wrong, I lose experience as well. Just like if you die in an RPG, you lose some experience, right? Let's demonstrate that. Oh, there's a line. All right, so intentionally I've made a really horrible line that does not approximate that data at all. I'm gonna check. Ooh, you can see I've lost some experience there, all right? So in the end, in order to get credit for a topic, you have to answer enough questions right in a row that Alex knows that you've mastered that topic. So let's do it again. That looks much better. All right, so I got credit there. And let's do one more so that we can get out of the inning here. All right, so it looks like I filled my experience bar in, and when I click next, that means that now I've completed that topic and I have 16 more topics left to go to get to my objective goal. In other words, to complete the homework assignment that is the current assignment. If you're getting irritated with a particular topic, you can also use this drop-down window, and you can work on other topics within that assignment as well and come back to it later if you want to. Are there any questions about how Alex works? So I'm going to show you quickly how you can keep track of your grades in Alex. The easiest way is so I used this little drop-down menu and went to Gradebook. So you can see that I've done 52% of my first assignment, the prerequisite review. Now, what if you have worked way ahead in Alex and you want to see your grades for all of the assignments that haven't even technically been assigned yet? You can do that by going here to Filters and then clicking Show Upcoming. And then it'll show you your grades for all of the assignments, not just the ones that have currently been assigned or collected. All right. So if you want to work ahead, even tonight, you could sign up for Alex and work through all of your homework for the entire quarter and get 100% on all these. If you wanted to, you could do that tonight. All right. Now, probably you're going to run into some questions that you're not going to be able to answer, but the homework is all available to you right now. And here's how you can keep track of how far ahead you are if you get ahead in the course, or if you want to work ahead. Any questions about homework? Pretty straightforward. It can be a little frustrating when a topic is just like a thorn in your side. So my advice, do the Alex homework early and ask questions, all right? Write down any topic names that you're having trouble with, and we can certainly do example problems of those either during office hours or during recitations. If you're having a problem, then I guarantee you other students are too, so it'll be worth your time to get help with that.
Can you interact with our Alex page? Like, so let's say we were in
Yes, I can look and see what exact questions you've missed, and I can see how many times you've tried to master a topic. Yes, I can track everything that you do.
Okay.
And also, I see exactly how long you've spent in Alex. So don't tell me you spent 8 hours on it if you spent 20 minutes, because I'll be able to tell that you're fibbing. So I do want to show you one more thing. What was it that I wanted to show you in Alex? Crap, there was something else. Oh, okay. So let's go back to start my path, or if you've worked for a little while longer and you've done some assignments, it may say continue my path here. If you've completed an assignment and you're working ahead, instead of start my path or continue my path, it may say work ahead. So then you know that you've completed the objective, the homework assignment that's the current one, and you're already working on the stuff that's not due yet, which is awesome. All right. The other thing that I want to show you is that learning in Alex is supported. So let's say that you've forgotten how to add fractions. All right. Let's say that later on in the class, you've forgotten how to do stoichiometry and you get a stoichiometry question. If you don't know what stoichiometry is, that's sort of a version of chemistry math where we keep track of reactants and products and things like that. So don't worry if you've never heard of that before, we'll learn it later. If you're having trouble with any topic in Alex, if you click on explanation, there is an embedded tutorial for literally every topic in Alex that will help remind you of how to do that thing. All right. So those are really, really useful. And a lot of times, Alex has a slightly different way of explaining those things than I do. That's good because sometimes what I say is probably not going to make very much sense to you, but maybe what Alex says will make more sense. All right. I am not arrogant enough to think that my way of understanding chemistry is the only way to think about it. As long as we get to the same place where your knowledge base is similar to what I'm expecting of you, I don't care if you get to that knowledge base by listening to me or by reading explanations in Alex. All right. This is another thing to help support your learning. And the good thing is it's available all the time, not just when I'm around or when I'm in office hours. So use that. Now let's look at Beyond Labs, our lab program. So I'm going to go to beyondlabs.com. That's where you're going to go to download the software. So the easiest way to download the software is to click here on login. And I've already established a registration email and password, but you're going to click on register, and then you're going to give them an email and a good password. And after that, if you use the activation code that we've already got for each one of you, you'll be able to activate your license for Beyond Labs. All right, so once you do that and activate your license, you'll be able to log in. And here you will see, instead of open for each one of these, you'll see download. You don't need to download all of the lab suites. I think we'll use ones from chemistry, so you'll want to download that. We may use one from physics, so download that. And we'll use some from physical science also, so download those. Lab number 1, if you want to start working on that, because it's going to be due next Friday and assigned like this Friday-ish. It might even be due next Thursday if we make our lab day like Thursday at 6:30. I'll probably have it due 1 week after we do our tutorial time together for it. So the first lab is in this physical science suite. And if I open that, any old time now, Beyond Labs. Oh. This is the screen that will come up when I click open. And no, not the right one. Let's try one more time. Okay, here we go. So our first lab is under structure and properties of matter. And don't worry about it saying high school worksheets. Of our introductory labs work very well for a high school class as well as a college class, so this is fine. This is a good little lab that introduces just a topic that we're not really going to learn until the end of the course, what happens to gases when we change their conditions. But in general, it's about just how we think about scientific inquiry. So the process of using the scientific method where we make an observation, and then from that we design an experiment and then test whatever our hypothesis is. So we might hypothesize that as the temperature of a gas increases, its volume might increase, but we won't know that until we do the experiment to see what happens. So with this little lever, I can change the temperature. And it looks like as that temperature goes up, hey, the volume of the gas is increasing in that balloon. Now, the other cool thing that I really like about these simulations is that they do some interesting, unexpected kinds of things. So does anybody know what happens when we increase the pressure of a gas? What happens to the gas's volume when we increase its pressure?
Does it get smaller?
Yeah. So you can think about that as like squeezing the balloon, right? If we're putting more pressure on the gas, then it's going to compress. So let's go ahead and try that really quick. I'm increasing my pressure. And you can definitely see that that balloon is getting smaller in volume. That must mean if we decrease the pressure, the balloon should get bigger. So let's try that. Oh, so it looks like at some point the balloon just can't get any bigger and the rubber breaks, and that's kind of awesome. There are lots of places in these lab suites where you can cause explosions if you do things in an unexpected way, or sometimes like that explosion is what you're supposed to see. So anyway, that's one of the things that I really like about this suite of simulations is that the balloon can't expand indefinitely, all right? Eventually it does break, just like a real balloon. There's another lab where we test the amount of energy in TNT, in dynamite. If you ignite too much TNT in a small space, it's going to explode and blow everything up, and that can happen in that lab as well. So that's one of the things that I really like about our lab suite is that there are sort of like real physical constraints that are sort of built into that space, which is awesome. The hardest part about the lab suite a lot of times is just finding where the lab actually is. So if you have the title of the lab, you can sort of scroll through the different places, like, where did it go? Most of our labs are going to be either in the physical science space or in the general chemistry space. So you can just sort of click and look through the titles of the different labs to find your worksheet that you're doing for the week. And if we look under chemistry here, very similar things where you can look at the different experiments, and by title, you should be able to figure out which worksheet you're doing. And the cool thing is, if you click on the title for that worksheet, the lab already is set up for you to do that experiment for the week. So you go into the lab and everything is ready, and you just follow the instructions on the worksheet for how to manipulate the things in this lab space. All right, it does take a little bit of practice, but basically almost anything that you can do in a regular lab space, you can do here. Like for example, I can take a weighing paper and put it on my balance. Hey, weighing papers actually have real mass, right? So you can see that that weighing paper weighs 0.2272 grams. If I were to want to weigh something on this balance, I would want to subtract the weight of that paper. So I would click tare to do that. And then after that, I could put whatever I wanted to on that weighing paper and get its mass directly. I could pull that thing out and put it next to the balance. And if I zoomed back out, that thing would be ready. So let's say that I weighed out some sodium chloride. It would be right here ready to pour into a beaker or whatever I wanted to put it in. So it's a really neat immersive lab environment. And if we can't be together and actually getting our hands dirty in the lab, then this is like kind of the next best thing. Any questions about that?
Do we know if there will be any point in the semester where we will be doing actual labs, or has that been just thrown off the table at this point?
It's off the table for fall quarter. Yep. So if you think about it, I mean, it makes kind of perfect sense. Like the best that we could do for fall quarter is we could potentially have a vaccine available to a very small number of people. That's not going to be enough to where if we were to do in-person labs, then the way that those would work in our lab space, especially at Whidbey Island campuses, I would be able to have 6 students in the lab at a time. And for a class where I've got 48 students, that means I'd have to run the lab 8 times in order to get everybody through. It's not very feasible. So maybe by winter quarter, when vaccine would be more widely available, certainly I think by spring quarter, things are probably going to start getting back to more semblance of normality. But for fall quarter, they just took it off the table. The other thing is, like, we've got to be able to plan in advance for how labs work. And with so many unknowns and with it looking not very good for fall, it's better for us to just make the decision early and stick with it. That way we can plan and have a suite of labs ready to go for you guys now and not have to sort of change on the fly and try and refigure it out. Does that make sense?
Yeah. No, perfect sense. I was just curious if it was sort of set in stone or not. No, that's
It
good.
is set in stone for now. No decisions have been made about winter quarter yet.
Gotcha.
Any other questions about labs? The hardest part that you'll find for the labs is like how to actually find them. So at the beginning of our time together for our lab recitations, which I'm thinking I'm just going to make that 6:30 p.m. on Thursdays. If you can't make that, it's totally fine, because remember, every meeting for the entire class is going to be recorded. You can always watch that little tutorial later on. And most of the labs are pretty easy to go through, and they're really actually a lot of fun. So the other thing that's great about them is you don't have to clean up after yourself in a virtual lab environment. So a lot of the labs you can actually get done with in like a half hour. And if we were doing them together, it would be 2 hours instead. So that's a really nice benefit as well. It's a little more efficient than an in-person space. All right, so we've covered the homework for the class. We've covered labs for the class, which is a good thing because Haley was here last night. I couldn't even use the login for Beyond Labs. It was crashing last night, really irritating. One of my pet peeves, my biggest pet peeves, is when technology things don't work right. So it's good that it was working a little better today. My blood pressure, I can feel it just going. All right. So in terms of how the class is going to be structured, I think you guys have a pretty good idea. Make sure that you pay attention over the next couple of days, because I'm going to finalize deadlines for all of those reading quizzes for the quarter. And I'm going to finalize all the deadlines in Alex for the homework. And then you'll know when everything is due for the entire course. All right. So starting with the recitation tomorrow night at 5, I'm going to start having students ask questions about course content, and in terms of stuff from chapter 1, things that people normally have issues with are how to make sense of all of those prefixes in the metric system. That's one thing that students tend to have problems with. And I mean, it's only 12:30 now. We could spend a little time on that even today if you wanted to. Alex and your textbook have a specific way of talking about those prefixes, and I have a little different way of thinking about it that sort of resonates well with a lot of students. Also, another big topic from the first chapter is the whole idea of significant figures. So how we keep track of how many digits we use when we do calculations with measured quantities. The videos for those topics are really good in the chapter 1 suite, if I do say so myself, because I'm the one that made them. But they're really useful and you should watch them. And I'm assuming that after you watch them, you'll probably want to do some more practice problems. So Thursday's recitation and then Monday's recitation for you guys next week will be times when you can ask questions and we can do some more practice with the chapter 1 stuff before we move on to chapter 2. So chapter 1's an introduction, but it's an introduction that's really important because we're going to use significant figures for the entire quarter. We're going to be doing sort of unit conversions where we cancel units out, like turning centimeters into meters. That's a very basic conversion, but learning how to do that is also important because it's going to teach us how to set up all kinds of other problems where we need to change from one unit into another unit. So we'll learn a lot more about those things in the next couple of recitation times. There are some example problems in those short videos, but I'm assuming you guys will want even more examples to work on. So please ask about those things and we can definitely do it. Any other questions like about anything for in terms of how the course is going to run? I'm going to try my best to support your learning at all times. And I'm here for you guys. I can only be here for you if I know that you're struggling though. So don't be a stranger. All right. If you're having problems, please ask and I'm more than willing to help you. It's going to help a lot if you ask more than like an hour before you're supposed to start your exam though. Okay, if you guys don't have anything else, I think I'm going to end our meeting for the day. And starting tomorrow and on Monday, we'll start covering the sort of sticky points from chapter 1. So make sure you're watching those videos so that you're prepared to ask good questions and talk through some examples. All right? All right. Have a wonderful afternoon, everybody.